guys, are you looking to get into a good college and wondering what are the steps that you have to take if you want to get into a good school? In this video, I'm going to share with you the ingredients to getting into a good school and then kind of the game of getting in. My name is Brooke. I've been coaching students through the college admissions process for over a decade and a half. I've coached students into top schools like Harvard, Stanford, Yale. Just in the last year, 50% of the students that I work with on essays that got back to me about their performance got into their first choice college. So getting in is kind of the game that I talk to students about playing, and I want students to prove themselves. I'm not here to try to cheat the system or do anything like unethical, etc. But I do think that understanding how the system works is super critical to putting your best foot forward and having the best chances you can of having opportunity and outcomes that are what you want in this process. Really quick plug, we've got a couple of courses for the SAT and the ACT. You can find those at SupertutorTV.com. We also have classes we've started for the college application essay writing process. And we have a new super seminar that's live for students who are high scorers on the SAT reading section that want to bump their score. Maybe you got a 700, you want a 750, maybe you have a 750, you want a 790. I'm going to talk about that sort of top echelon of points on the SAT reading and a little bit on the SAT writing section to try to help you guys get your scores up higher. Definitely check that out as well. Let's get started. Here are the ingredients that you need to get into a good college. Most colleges and universities are going to be looking at 6 things in your college application. But the other thing that I'm going to say is that colleges and universities all have different opinions on how much each of these things matter, okay? The first thing that you have to have is great grades. Grades are on the rise. A lot of people have excellent grades. The majority of students applying to competitive colleges are going to have a 3.7 or above. And what that means is you've got to be studying, be doing your best, and achieving in school. That should be an obvious. If you start to get into more Bs, then maybe we adjust academic rigor, which is my second point. The idea of academic rigor is that you need to be challenging yourself. So if you take all regular classes and get straight A's, and you're like, oh, I want to get into, UCLA, and so I'm just going to take the regular classes because it'll be easier to get A's. They want you to be challenging yourself. They want you to be taking AP classes, IB classes, honors classes, dual enrollment classes. You want to take as many of those as you think you can handle because you want to be enriching yourself, your mind, challenging yourself, doing the hard path, not the easy path. I know there's a balance between grades and academic rigor. I have a whole video on that, so if you want to go check that out, that's cool. But make sure that you're challenging yourself. Number 3, third ingredient is test scores. Now, I know the majority of colleges and universities in the United States are test optional. So that means if you have test anxiety, the world of college is not shut to you. But I will say, I see too many students right now thinking, oh, life is test optional. I don't need an SAT or an ACT score. And then they apply to all these colleges. They think they're going to get in test optional. And you know what? They get into 2. And they thought they were going to get into 6. And they don't. So be aware that your test scores, even in a test optional environment, are still important. In fact, the majority of colleges and universities are still listing them in the very important categories on their common data sets. So we are not seeing schools pull back from emphasizing these as a metric in admissions. And if you're applying to big state schools, we see even more emphasis on these. It's also true that the majority of competitive colleges are activities optional, right? But would you really expect to get into a competitive college or university with 0 extracurricular activities whatsoever? Same thing with test scores. If you want to give yourself the best edge possible, you should at least be taking these tests, trying your best on them, using them as a tool to try to prove yourself because it still can create an advantage in the admissions process. Remember, test scores aren't just SAT and ACT also, they're also AP exams. AP scores are increasingly being used at schools that are quote unquote test blind. So for example, UCLA, test blind, they still want to see your AP scores. So just because a school is quote unquote test blind does not mean tests have gone away. It just means maybe they switch which tests they're looking at if you have that test available. And if you don't have AP tests, don't worry, that shouldn't be held against you, but it probably is all the more reason that if you're applying test optional, maybe you want to take the SAT and the ACT and try to do your best. 4th, letters of recommendation. A lot of schools are going to look at letters of recommendation. Not all of them are, but it tends to be an important factor at a lot of colleges. So it's important that you build relationships with the teachers that you have. It's important that you pop in and your school counselor knows you a little bit so that he or she can write a good letter for you for those colleges and universities that are going to require it. Next on my list is activities. Now, there's different levels of activities that are going to impress different colleges and universities. And there's also different levels of importance with these activities. And we'll talk about this a little bit more in a minute. But you want to be involved and you want to be, as I always like to say, exploring your interests. So rather than just do something for the sake of doing something, rather than just showing up for the activities fair at your high school and signing up on all the clipboards you want, think about how you can explore things that matter to you, right? That means if you're interested in writing, maybe you join the newspaper. And what kind of activities read where is going to depend on what kind of school you go to, right? Stanford loves like X Factor, Wow Factor, amazing feats that make you seem like you're super extra extraordinary. So that's winning national competitions, right? Being the best trombone player in your state. If you're applying to a place like UCLA, you don't need something so impressive. Now, if you just want to go to Ohio State, if you want to get into your state flagship, something like that, you want to go to a school people have heard of, but you're like, come on, Brooke, I'm not Harvard material. Cool, you still want to be involved in some way. So find a way to join activities, make a mark, and above all, explore your interests. Figure out what is it that I might be interested in doing for the rest of my life and what kind of activities can I do to try to explore that in some way, okay? Finally, my last thing is your personal essays or personal statement. Your personal statement and your essays are a way that you can reflect on who you are, on what matters to you, on your personal character. And these kind of traits are also things that are important to many colleges and universities, and to a varying rate. So those are the ingredients, but then how do you get in, right? It's one thing to do all that work, but then what do you do, right? What is this system that you're trying to get into, and what's the right way to approach it? Now, I'm not saying that you need to be Machiavelli, and I am not a proponent of cheating the system. I am not here to be like, yeah, let's create a scandal and cheat our way through or find all the loopholes and be really like devious. That's not what this is about. Anytime you're trying to accomplish something, there's a system that you have to work within. And if you can understand that system, you can execute on your goals more effectively. That's all that I'm saying. Our channel is going to give you a lot of information in that particular space. And one piece of information I'm going to share with you guys today is the common data set, which is kind of a cool thing. Common data sets are really helpful because they help you figure out where do I have a better chance of admission. And this is released by the majority of colleges and universities, not all of them, right? There's a few outliers that refuse to share their data with us. But here really quickly, so this is just a screenshot of relative importance of each of the following academic and non-academic factors in first-time, first-year, degree-seeking freshman admission decisions. And this is UCLA right here. So we can look through all of this. And like I said, you're going to find that academic GPA on the whole is going to be very important at almost every college and university, right? That's my number one. Some of them won't be important at all, though, at some universities. For example, remember I talked about letters of recommendation? Well, guess what? UCLA doesn't care, right? Right here. Letters of recommendation, UCLA doesn't care. There's other things UCLA doesn't care about. They don't have interviews. Alumni relations, don't care. Legacy at UCLA, doesn't matter. Religion, nope. Racial, ethnic status, nope. So if you're from an overrepresented minority or you're white, guess what? Comparatively, you may have a better shot at UCLA than some other colleges that are about in the same tier as UCLA, right? Because ethnicity isn't going to come into play. Standardized test score, they are test blind. UCLA's test blind. They're not going to look at those at all. You can see down here, we've got extracurriculars, talent, character, personal qualities. These are all important. Volunteer work, work experience, also important. First generation, geographic residence, state residency, right? If you're in state in California, that's going to make a difference here. This is a state school. So when I say understand the game, this is part of understanding the game, right? This means if I have a student, for example, that has solid extracurriculars, but they're not an Olympian, they're not curing cancer, right? But they have great grades, really good GPA. Maybe they have kind of a crappy SAT score. Maybe, if we're not looking at ethnicity, they're from an overrepresented minority, or maybe they're white, right? Maybe they're in-state in California, right? All of those checkboxes are going to make me say, hey, you have a better shot at getting into UCLA than probably other schools of the same caliber, right? If we go down here to Stanford, we can see that the parameters change, they shift. Look, suddenly recommendations are very important. UCLA didn't even look at it. Being teacher's pet actually matters at Stanford. Standardized test scores, oh look, having a 1600 on your SAT, that's going to help too. And let's say you have a science project that cures cancer, right? Talent, ability, extracurricular activities, this talent, ability, this is like, I'm amazing. Or let's say you're one of the most amazing piano players in the world, right? UCLA does not care about that as much as Stanford does. So having this wow factor might help you more at Stanford than it does at UCLA, right? Let's look at Georgia Tech. This is interesting. Look down here, level of applicants' interest. Sometimes this is called demonstrated interest. If you want to go to Georgia Tech, you know a good way to get into Georgia Tech? Apply early. That's a way to tell them we're really interested in you. And guess what? Your application odds, they're going to shoot up like crazy. So when you know what schools care about and what they're looking for, you can position yourself to show them that, hey, I have what you want, right? And that's just the tip of the iceberg here. I just wanted to share with you a little bit of that. I hope you guys enjoy this. Subscribe to our channel if you haven't yet. And remember, we have lots more videos here that can help explain the process if you're just starting out and you're trying to figure all this out. We've got plenty of videos, hours upon hours of like free information right here on our YouTube channel. So I encourage you to subscribe, check us out. Thanks for watching, everybody, and we'll see you next time. Take care.